So the question is drawing a distinction between two different aspects of teaching. One is the watching of our thoughts and feelings, which is something I speak about a lot, both as we meditate, as well as just in life. But then also this concept of freeing yourself from the tyranny of the thinking mind. And so, well, isn't watching my thoughts and feelings also thinking? So, interestingly, it's not actually about thinking as bad or thoughts as bad. It's not about bad or good, or one is something we should do, one is something we shouldn't do. It's about having access to the full scope of who you are. And so the problem with being a slave to the thinking mind is it literally keeps me in jail. The jail being the jail of my own mind. Those of us with overactive minds, you don't need me to tell you it's a jail. You know that. That's your day-to-day, minute-to-minute, moment-to-moment existence of the mind. You wouldn't have such a movement of people from non-Hindu, non-Buddhist, non-Eastern countries turning toward meditation if the thinking mind weren't experienced as a problem. Those of us not born and raised in an Eastern culture would never turn toward these practices if living in the tyranny of our thinking mind didn't create problems for us. So the thoughts are not the problem. The problem is that once you're in their grip of the thinking mind, it's very, very difficult to get out. And it becomes almost like you are one of those hamsters on the treadmills, and you're running and you're running and you're running and you're running, but you don't actually get anywhere other than very tired. Thinking in the mind requires an agreement within myself of separation. And so the thinking mind can only think about something. So if I am doing a math problem, or I'm balancing my checkbook, or I'm trying to figure out directions to where I'm going, or I'm making a list of pros and cons about different career choices, or different life paths, or different places to buy or rent a house, or different, whatever it may be. The thinking mind is fantastic. It's not a problem per se. It's only a problem when I hand over my entire existence and free will to it. It's only a problem when it becomes the master of my life rather than a tool in my life. And so if I can use it, like we have our five senses, we understand, we use them. They're all tools. I understand that that which I see is not the beginning and the end of what exists, which is why I'm very glad to have other senses as well. I understand that there's a lot of existence out there that I can't smell or that I can't taste. We understand they all work together in the combined experience. And yet, there's a whole world out there also that our five senses can't tell us about. And most of us are aware of that. We tend to lump it into the concept of intuition. It's like all else goes under the umbrella of intuition. But the thinking mind really in many ways is a sense. It's one way for us to interpret the world. But just like my organ of sight functions very mathematically based on angles between the two eyes in visual fields, based on waves of light, based on movement, my thinking mind functions only in separation. So if I were using my two eyes, there would be a distance at which I can read what's on this paper, and a distance at which I can't read it, based on that which works with the angles of my eyes and that which doesn't work. And that's where, as we get older, we have to start, and they say you need glasses when your arms aren't long enough. So the angles of the eyes have changed such that I can no longer experience the words on this page with my eyes. My mind is a sense just like that. It requires the world to be held at an arm's length. Then I can think about it. So I can do a math problem. I can do balancing a checkbook. I can do a list of pros and cons. I can pass judgment. I can have preferences. I can have all sorts of subjective labeling. I can do all the things that you do when something is held at an arm's length away from you. Even if I think about myself, even when we become introspective about the self, it's me looking at the self who is different from the me who is looking, right? Those of you who have practiced introspection, which is one of Puja Swamiji, my guru's deepest teachings, is this practice of introspection. When you do it, it's one aspect of me looking at another aspect of me. And I'm introspecting. Where did I lose my temper? Where did I lose myself? Where did my ego get a hold of me? So I'm holding myself, my lowercase s self, at an arm's length, and I'm looking at it. I'm introspecting on it. Now here's the dilemma. That's great for all things separate from the part of me that's thinking about them or looking at them. But it deprives me of the experience and the awareness and the understanding of all of that which is to be known in connection. And so it deprives me of everything to be known through intuition, through love, through spirituality, through oneness, through a truth that is different than you are separate than me. Thinking mind will look out and see lots of people, different sizes, different shapes, different colors. But the heart, the real seer, looks out and sees the self. Looks out and feels the energy of connection. And you feel it. If you let yourself do it, there's a little beautiful sort of energy sizzle that happens when you have that experience with looking at another being and knowing that you're connected, knowing that you're one, whether you've ever met them before or not. There's a recognition of the self, and it sizzles of energy. Now, the thinking mind can't do that. And one of the issues that comes up a lot in meditation is the minute I start wondering as I'm meditating about what stage I'm at in meditation, about whether I'm going to get enlightened tonight, whether this is the soul I've experienced, the minute I have that question in my mind, I've lost it. Regardless of what it was, the minute the mind starts to think about it, I've lost it. Because it's happening separate from the mind. And so when we teach about watch your thoughts, watch your feelings, no, it's not thinking, actually. Thinking is jumping into them. Thinking is engaging with them. And so let's say that I'm meditating, and as I'm meditating, I hear a car horn honking outside my window. So it's just a sound at that moment. It's just a sensation. A car horn is honking. Now, my thought jumps in. Oh, God, I hate this stupid neighborhood. Never should have moved here. I cannot believe I let her convince me to move here. You know, my whole life, all we do is what she wants. I never get my way. It's been like this since we were kids. I really need to stand up and tell her. Now, it was a car horn. And suddenly, I could be back at 4 years old with a sister who stole my Play-Doh and nobody told her not to. Or any one of another billion options depending on what our relationship to that sound may be. It could even be, oh God, that's the same exact sound that my boyfriend's car used to make when he used to come pick me up. God, I really miss him. I never should have broken up with him. That was such a bad decision. You know, thought I was going to, do something else. And he was a nice guy. God, I remember we went out to that restaurant once. Haven't been there in such a long time. They made such great falafel. I should go have falafel again. Car horn. Falafel, right? Where do we go? Now, when we say watch the thoughts, what it means is I'm meditating, car horn is there. The first thought is simply car horn. Before I go anywhere, before there's the thought of I hate this neighborhood, or that reminds me of a boyfriend, or I hope I'm not late for my ride, before that, the very first thought is car horn. Now, if I can catch it there, if I watch that happen, I've acknowledged it. I've watched that I had a thought. And I then bring the awareness back to the breath. Thinking is you jump into the thought and you follow it. So an easy way to think about it visually is if you're lying on your back and you're looking up at the sky on a beautiful blue sky day, and wispy clouds start coming. So if a cloud starts in that part of the sky, one option is you notice it all the way over there and you follow it while it comes across the sky. Another way is you stay focused on the blueness of the sky, and just for a brief moment that cloud crosses your awareness, but your focus stays on the blueness of the sky. And the goal is that. Stay focused on that space between the thoughts. And the reason that we watch them is not about getting involved in the movie. It's not about, oh, that was a good thought. Yeah, let's see where that one goes. It's because by watching them, I become aware of the craziness of my own mind. That's usually the first thing that happens to most of us. If you've never watched your thoughts, chances are you have a much better impression of the working of your mind than you should. The very first time most people really watch their thoughts is this extraordinary experience of humility. Oh my God, it is such a mess in there. It's like opening a closet that you haven't opened in years and you forgot what you've stuffed in there, and you open it up and suddenly everything falls out onto your head. It's like that. The mind is moving so fast and we don't even notice it. But that's what keeps us from being able to actually live in connection. Because if I'm thinking about you, I can't be connecting with you. Now, thinking about her isn't wrong. I can look at her and I can say, oh, beautiful young woman. I can think so many different beautiful things about her. But that's from a place of separation. It's judgment. Even if it's positive, it's still judgment. And the higher truth is, self. A different package. But look at that. I can actually connect with myself in her. And that's where that energetic, beautiful sizzle comes for that moment. And so we watch our thoughts to make sure that they don't swoop us up and carry us away. When that happens, it's called thinking. Now, circling back for a moment, thinking isn't bad by any means. It's a great tool as long as you're in control. So if you have something you need to think about, by all means, think about it. Use the thinking mind. But don't let it run away with you. It's like if you have a hammer, it's a great tool for the nails that you need to be hammered into your wall. But that doesn't mean that you take it and allow it to beat itself into you all day long, just because it happens to be a useful tool for some other things. You understand it has its place. When there's a nail, I will use it. When there is not a nail, I'm going to let it alone. Same thing with the thinking mind. When I need to think about something, I'm going to use it. But when I allow myself to be captured by it, I've stolen my own freedom. Because there is no freedom in the mind. The freedom exists in the heart. Because freedom exists only when I am aware of the fullness of who I am. If I'm identifying only as what the mind can do, which is this body, this history, these urges, these accomplishments, these bits of knowledge, this past, this anxiety, this personality, well, that's anything but free. That's a very temporary existence. My freedom comes in knowing that I'm not that, or that I'm certainly not at least only that. I also have a body, but I'm not the body. I have a brain that thinks, but I'm not the brain that thinks. And who I am is expansive and boundless. But I need to break out of the confines of the brain to be able to do that. Because the brain can't wrap itself around that which is one. And that's okay. Neither can a hammer. But that's why we don't use them for that. That's where we drop into our hearts. That's where we drop into the experience of oneness. That's where we drop into our intuitive way of knowing. So watch the thoughts and feelings to keep yourself from being hijacked by them. But don't hook yourself into them as the thinking mind.